Howdy. It is Sunday, January 24th, I believe, and we are at the Whitney Plantation again. This is the same place we showed up to yesterday, but we were too late to do any of the touring, so we just did the visitor center, and I put up a video of that. And so now I'm doing a video today of the actual grounds that we are back to, and you can see some of the slave houses behind me, but I'm not going to touch on those right now. We're going to do a video for each of the different areas here. And so we're going to start talking about these iron pots, right? So these were obviously used for a lot of cooking, cleaning, boiling, washing clothes, any of those kind of things that you can imagine, right? And then we've got the ginormous ones down here. And I had taken a picture of Wayne with some of the ones out front yesterday, and he is nearly 6'3", and his wingspan comes just short of the width of these big pots. So this is what they used to boil the sugar cane into. And then we saw the trolley system out front where they put them into little like iron railroad carts and poured it into those carts and then rolled it down the road. Actually, you can't see it from here, but over that way is a giant sugarcane refinery that we drove by yesterday when we came out here, and it looks like something out of Star Wars because it's all copper colored and it's got little tiny lights all over it, and it was fascinating. And that is the original area where there was a sugarcane refinery back in the day, and then it has just expanded and gotten bigger and bigger for the area. So thought that was pretty cool. This is the memorial wall area of the Whitney Plantation Museum, and this museum is wonderful. Everything is so well thought out and laid out, and it really brings a lot of this history and horror right up close where everybody should be seeing it and reading about it and learning about it. And so what Wayne and I have done so far is we've walked around a couple memorial walls. We've walked around a couple of the memorial walls, and I want to just walk around one wall, and I'm going to span it and show you guys what is on the wall. I'm going to read the quotes from it, and I'm just going to do one wall, and then you just saw how many other walls there are here, right? So there are thousands of slave names on these walls, hundreds of individual stories of terrible moments being enslaved as a piece of property, a disposable piece of property, disposable to your own discretion based on the perceived value of that property, okay? Remember that. These people, men and women, who happened to be born white, got to own other humans because they said they could, right? Always remember that, okay? Here we go. Here is some of the walls. You're going to read the names, and I'm going to try to read these stories as I move this, okay? So here's one here that says, you know, talking to a slave what nursed 7 white chillum in their bullwhip days. Massa have them chillum when the war come on, and I nursed all of them. I stays in the house with them and sleeps on a pallet on the floor. Soon as I'm big enough to tote the milk pail, they puts me to work milking too. Massa have more than 100 cows, and most of the time Violet and me does all the milking. We better be in that cow pen by 5 o'clock. Katie darling, okay? Just barely old enough to carry some milk, and she and one other girl are milking more than 100 cows a day. And we are supposed to believe that these children wanted to do that, right? Tell me that. DeWady's place was ranged. They was the big house where the master live. Then behind was a row of about 15 or 20 slave cabin on one side and another row on the other side. Susan Forrest. So the master surrounded himself with the slaves, kept them close by, keep an eye on them, keep control of them, right? This one got Wayne and I for a minute. Massa used to hire out his niggers for wage hands. One time he hired me and a nigger boy Turner to work for some ornery white trash name of Kid. One day Turner goes off and don't come back. Old man Kid says, I knowed about it, and he tied my wrists together and stripped me. He hanged me by the wrist from a limb on a tree and straddles my legs round the trunk and ties my feet together. Then he beats me. He beat me worser than I ever been beat before, and I faints dead away. When I come to, I'm in bed. I didn't care so much if'n I died. Mary Reynolds. So Wayne and I at first, when we were reading this, thought it was two young boys. But no, just some girl. Go ahead and just beat her, because maybe she knew something. This one was interesting. No, indeed, my master didn't want no children to work. He used to say all the time, don't let dem little darkies work. It might hurt dem, and there is enough of dem older darkies on dis farm for work. And listen, there were 2 nurses in the hospital to take care of the children. Their mothers did not have time to take care of them. All their master wanted was for them women to have children. Elizabeth Ross Height. More property, right? More property. He didn't even have to pay for those ones, right? He might have even got to let him lay with the women in the first place to have them. Who freaking knows? So as I'm reading this, I'm realizing that I can't read them all without it sounding like maybe I'm being facetious about some of this stuff. I know somebody might be listening to me read it and you're being critical of their pronunciation, their English, that maybe this reinforces the fact that Africans were ignorant because they couldn't read, they couldn't speak properly. But why should they? All they're learning is what their masters or the slave traders choose to teach them, right? Because English was not their main language, that shouldn't have been their main language. And so why do we expect that they are going to learn a brand new language exactly the same eloquent way that we as whites had been learning it for hundreds of years, right? So I guess that puts Ebonics into a whole new light for me. And maybe you think that's silly, but I think we really have to go back and think about the origin of where all of these base problems came for this entire culture that became part of an integrated civilization that were just used, right? Just simply used. So I'm going to turn this around one more time. I'm going to do one more scan of the memorial wall section, and I want you to remember, I'm not being disrespectful, there's names on the back of each side and on the back end of each side. So as I scan through this, just understand that we're not walking through the entire thing. I am going to start walking down towards the end here and see what this statue at the end might be. But we're going to scan the walls too, because we're going to pay a nominal amount of respect to everybody on here. Everybody say hi to Wayne. There's Wayne. We just caught up with him. I didn't know where he wandered off to. What do you want me to see? Yeah, that's where we're going. So, you want to walk down there with me and tell me what it is? All right, I'm going. He said he hasn't been there yet. So, we're still being mesmerized by the countless number of names. And I say countless, but of course there's a record somewhere of exactly all these names. Mind you, all the names are only first names, and all of these names are very interestingly Anglo-Saxon, right? So we've got slaves named George and Nancy and Julie and Henry, Daniel and Charles and James and Bill and Simon. Come on, that was not those people's names, guys. That was not those people's names. All right, so here we are back here to the statue, and you're going to get right up close with me while we read the plaque. And the plaque says, oh, the longboat. This is an artist's view of the longboats that were used by the slave ships' crews upon arrival in Africa. The longboat would be rowed upriver to gather slaves. The slaves were taken aboard, chained, and brought to the mouth of the river, where they were placed in a large slave pen until they were loaded on the main ship and taken to slave markets. The slaves were referred to as cargo. The longboat would be unloaded while the slave ship was anchored off the mouth of the river in the Atlantic Ocean. So now let's go to the front and see what this slave longboat looks like, shall we? Oh, here, you can see it better from this angle. There. Okay, so this is a representation of the boats that picked up the slaves and took them to the markets. Okay, that's the chapel building up there, and we'll be going to that here shortly. And I'll probably make another video, because I believe that this is information you should have. And I think that if you really, truly think about the origin of slavery, the system of slavery, the economics of slavery, and the detriment to a culture that slavery created, you might be one step closer to understanding racial tensions from the black side, right? Look how white I am. I sure as hell didn't pay any extra money for this color. I just got lucky this time around, right?